Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for our arts, or no, this is the sports and entertainment media panel. Arts and entertainment, no, jeez. This is our sports and entertainment panel. This community always gives me trouble. So yes, this is our sports and entertainment panel. So thank you for joining us. What I'll do quickly is introduce the panelists, let you know who we have here. For those students that are in the room, you guys just want to kind of stay on mute throughout the presentation. We'll try to probably wrap up around half an hour-ish, and then we'll open it up for student questions. Again, students, you'll have the opportunity to come off mute, ask questions if you feel comfortable. Any questions you may have in the chat. Again, students, like I said, just try to stay on mute up until the Q&A part. So again, to our panelists, thank you so much for helping us out today. I'm going to go in no particular order, just on the order that I have my Word document here. So we have Emily, who is a 2016 grad here with us. She's a communications content specialist at ESPN. We have Katie here. She's a 2018 graduate of Sacred Heart, digital media and content coordinator with the Columbus Blue Jackets. We have Chris Ciozo here with us. He's a 18 and 19 graduate, right, Chris? Sports supervisor at SiriusXM. And then we have Nicole here with us. She's a 17 graduate, a manager at Outlier, and joining us from sunny California. So again, thank you guys so much for helping us today. Kind of to the panelists, just for logistical purposes, we'll ask you guys some questions. I know probably when we get around to the third or fourth person answering that question, if it seems like your answer is pretty consistent, don't feel like you have to reiterate anything anybody said. You can simply just say, someone kind of took my answer, or somebody else responded. And again, maybe we can kind of go in different orders to make sure someone doesn't always get their answers stolen. So kind of to start us off, I think it'd be good to just, I know I kind of mentioned your names and where you work, but even if you guys just kind of want to give me or give us all a broad overview of kind of what you do, kind of what your job entails. Katie, you're at the top of my screen, so maybe you can just start us off with that. And again, the question, I guess, is more so, can you tell us about your current role and what do you do now, and how do your experience at Sacred Heart maybe play a role in kind of where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently a digital media and content coordinator for the Columbus Blue Jackets, which is an NHL team. Previously, this is actually not my entry level job, but I worked for Sacred Heart University in the College of Business and Technology. And I also worked for an agency called Havas Media Group, working with the golf brands Titleist and FootJoy. And in my senior year, I started working part-time for the Boston Bruins. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the sports world, getting experience running social media channels, learning how to kind of engage with communities in a digital sense, and understanding really what works from a content perspective. Currently with the Blue Jackets, in the most casual sense, I help create and distribute content across all of our digital channels. So TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, app, and website. And my role, we have a 5-person department, and my role specifically, I really focus on strategy and analytics. So seeing what content we're putting out works and how to optimize the content that's not working to make it more appealing and attractive to consumers and fans, and really try to grow the CBJ fan community, both in Columbus and Ohio and in the world. So Sacred Heart specifically, I graduated from the College of Business and Technology, and I enjoyed it because it was a really well-rounded curriculum. I took a lot of analytics focused classes, like a lot of economics classes, kind of just for fun. And that really helped me look at large amounts of data and understand what the story is in the data and how to kind of use that to improve business processes. I really enjoyed my time at Sacred Heart, and I definitely think it helped make me marketable to get this job and help kind of give me those skills to have success in the industry.
Awesome, thanks. Chris, why don't you take it away next, and then I'll go Emily, Nicole, and then for the next question, I'll have Nicole start us off, and we'll go in that reverse order.
All right, great. Like Mike mentioned, I graduated undergrad 2018 and my graduate degree in sports media in 2019. I went to work for the MLB Network in 2019, 1 year, and then I went on to now my current job at SiriusXM, where I started as a board operator in radio. SiriusXM, you guys are, I'm sure, all familiar with, has 900 channels, entertainment, music, sports. I work in sports right now as a sports supervisor. I oversee all the board operators in the department. There's about 5 or 6 of us, and then there's a manager. We do a lot of big events, all the big sporting events. Recently, I just worked the Super Bowl. So it was, we have 10 or 11 different language feeds, including English and the Westwood feed, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Kevin Harlan and all the big announcers. So we communicate with all the different broadcasts, sports like NFL, NHL, MLB. We're even covering the Olympics right now. So I work a lot of overnights, unfortunately. I mean, that's part of the job. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with in sports. But Sacred Heart really, really, they grounded me to be the sports professional that I am. I saw that Andrew Miller was in here. He's the head of the master's program for sports media. He did a great job, along with Brian Thorne, Paul Pabst, getting me into the sports professional that I am, learning all about radio, TV, just sports in general. But yeah, no, I love what I do. I wake up, I love going to work. It's a great company that I work for. Anybody that's interested in working for SiriusXM, don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions that you might have. But yeah, so basically, like I said, I oversee all the board operators for all our SiriusXM sports channels.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Morning, everybody. My name is Emily. I'm a 2016 graduate with a BA in Media Arts. My current role at ESPN is a communications content specialist, which is a really vague term for a lot of kind of roles all rolled into one. So it's like graphic designer meets social media manager, copy editor, and then content producer. So in my primary day-to-day responsibilities is overseeing ESPN PR's social accounts and then collaborating with our publicists to get their content in the traditional press format and make it social friendly. So that's putting together social cards and visual assets, putting together social copy, pairing that, sending it across our platforms, and then also working with our team on our forward-facing corporate blog, ESPN Front Row. And then in addition to that, working with our images team, our on-site photographers that go out to events, getting their content across our social, but working across all different properties, everything that ESPN touches, I've had the opportunity to work on, which is really nice. So every day is different. And ESPN Communications, the department overall, is a team of 50 to 60 individuals spread out across the country. So we have offices based in Bristol, Connecticut, Los Angeles, Texas, things all over the place. So my time at Sacred Heart definitely prepared me for my role in terms of just, sparking that curiosity across the media landscape. I dabbled in a little bit of everything in my time here outside of the classroom, whether it was the Spectrum newspaper, the Pulse TV News Magazine, WHRT radio, and those experiences and skills definitely helped transition into my professional environment today.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name is Nicole Cote. I graduated Sacred Heart in 2017. Sorry, I apologize for any background noise. I am at an event right now and it's hard to find quiet space. But shortly after graduating college, I took an internship with the President's Cup, which is a team event on the PGA Tour. I was located at Liberty National in New Jersey. So I did that event for a couple months after college. It ended around November, and then by the new year, I had nailed a job with my current company called Outlier. We've rebranded recently. When I got hired, we were Iger Marketing Group, if anyone's ever heard of that. And then we rebranded our name in the last couple months to Outlier. So we're a sports marketing kind of agency. So we specialize in golf. We own and operate 10 LPGA events, so women's golf, and one Champions Tour event, which is going on this week. That's where I am. So that's kind of our main job. And then we also have a second side of our business that is consulting work. So we have 3 consulting clients that we kind of help manage all of their stuff in the golf space. So whether it's private events in golf or partnerships with the PGA Tour or partnerships with players, we help manage that. Me personally, I became a manager in more recent years. I've been with them now for 4 years. And I work on our tournament side. I work on sponsor services. So all of our sponsors that we bring in for the tournament, the minute the contract is signed, I run with it and make sure everything that's in their contract gets fulfilled and they receive their tickets and everything. And when they come on site, their activations are set up, and just kind of being that liaison between the tournament and the sponsor. I also work on our client side. One of my clients here is Serve Pro, and they happen to be the presenting sponsor here this week. So I have a pretty big role down here this week, but they are an official marketing partner with the PGA Tour, and I help manage their partnership with the tour, and they do a bunch of events throughout the year. But I fell into this role thanks to my time at Sacred Heart. My junior year, I interned with the athletic department, made really good friends with many of the folks that work in the athletic department, one of whom was on a board, the golf board of PGA of America, which led me to an internship after my junior year with the PGA Championship in 2016. Never liked golf, didn't know anything about it at the time. And as soon as I finished that internship, I knew I wanted to do nothing else. So it's a pretty fun but unique world. It takes a very unique person to kind of put up, I think, with some of the stuff we do, the long hours that we work and time we put in, but there's nothing more rewarding than handing off a trophy on Sunday and seeing all of your hard work come to fruition. So I credit all of it to Sacred Heart and just teaching me all the contacts and networking and just moving my way throughout the world. The golf world is a pretty small place, and I would say that Sacred Heart helped me get my foot in the door here.
Awesome, thank you, Nicole. So I'll come back to you on this one, or to start us off on this one. So can you just kind of share, and maybe you touched on this a little bit, but can you share kind of, actually, maybe you didn't really talk about this yet, but can you share some advice for current students who either want to get into your area, or who, again, you could kind of answer it in a way of advice for students who are maybe beginning the internship and job search too, kind of however way you want to kind of go with that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do in golf, like I just said, golf's a pretty small and kind of niche market. The best thing to do is just intern. And if you see an event coming into your area, so there's always, especially in the Northeast, there's always something coming eventually. Whether it's in the summer or in the springtime in our area. That's how I definitely got my foot in the door, is interning. And there's small positions that you can be an intern for a week and just come out for the week of the tournament, or you can be an intern for a couple months leading up to the tournament. So kind of all over. I mean, I see these on teamworks.com, job postings, or you can look directly on pgatour.com for kind of a bigger role there. The USGA is based in New Jersey, which is pretty close by as well. Golf Channel actually just moved their headquarters to Stamford, Connecticut for NBC. So anything related to golf, we're kind of in the Northeast in that area, but I would say just keep your eye out for an internship. The great thing is our tournaments are 1 week really. So we need a lot of hands on deck to pull off what we do in a week. So even if you just come out for a week, the people you'll meet while you're out here and those connections are probably the most important. So I would just say to kind of keep continuing to network, keep meeting people. You never know who you're going to meet. I, to this day, run into people that I worked with 5-6 years ago when I was an intern. And they're the ones that have helped me get to where I am today and recommended me. So just, you never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to make a good impression on. So just always keep a smile on your face and be willing to try everything. The thing about my industry is I get to have dinner with a CEO of my client of my company. And then the next day I'm up at 5 a.m. lugging boxes around and staking stakes on the ground. So nothing is beneath you is kind of our motto here. You just pick up the slack and do whatever you can for a team. And if you have that attitude, you'll make it pretty far in this industry.
Great, thank you, Nicole. I did just want to kind of reiterate or plug something that you had mentioned. Teamwork Online is definitely, for those students looking to get into sports, it's definitely a great site or resource to use. It has pretty much every job that's posted from a sports organization, internships and full-time on there. And it doesn't just include the kind of like the 4 major sports that you would think of, not just hockey, basketball, football, and baseball, but it also has a lot of other opportunities and kind of these niche sports that such, again, Nicole, and golf, but also tennis, lacrosse, soccer. So for those students that are looking to get into sports, it's definitely a good resource to use. Emily, we'll pass it on over to you. What about any advice for current students who kind of want to get into your area, or again, maybe just advice for students looking kind of to start the internship or job search?
Sure. So from my side of things, I work, more on the PR side. So it's more telling about the story of ESPN rather than necessarily the sports and scores of what's going on the field. So I would say from the content side of things, definitely make sure you kind of have your content reels together. So if you're applying for like a writing position, make sure you have your clips, video, photography, graphic design, make sure you have content examples kind of on hand. Even if you go in for an interview and, the contact's like, hey, do you mind sending a sample? Always send those over, because I actually helped in the recruitment process for our department's internship last year. And part of that vetting process was making sure that, people just, aren't saying things on the interview to make sure there's a little bit of evidence backed up on there. So that definitely helps you stand out as an applicant. And then I would just say, don't be afraid to apply to like a bunch of different things. If you're reading through the application and you're like, oh, I kind of, check 5 of 6 of the boxes, or maybe, 2 out of 10. Sometimes you don't always need to meet the criteria specifically on the job description. Your personality and how you come across as an applicant in the interview process might stand out a little bit more, and that might help in terms of what the hiring director is looking for. People are great on paper, but until you kind of talk to them and get a sense of how they are as an individual, sometimes, you might gel with that group a little better than, because skills can be taught to everyone. It's the personality and your ability to work with others, especially in the sports environment, is what is key.
Great, thank you, Emily. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I'd recommend, like, when I was at Sacred Heart, I was always looking for internships, and especially I grabbed one my junior year. I started broadcasting. I live out in Long Island, so I broadcasted for the Hamptons Collegiate Baseball League, and my dream and it still is to do play-by-play. And even though I work in play-by-play and behind the scenes, it still gave me a great opportunity to make my dream come true. And even though it was collegiate baseball, I still had a great time doing it. Actually helped out this summer with them. So there was, it's great to keep connections, like everyone keeps saying. For my company, Sirius, they're always offering internships. It's funny how I never interned there, but my coworkers, they said they love it there. They loved interning there. I was going to give out, I don't know if I can, Mike, like a social media handle for internships and jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
It's called Sirius XM Life. And if you go on there, they're always posting internship opportunities, not just for sports, for entertainment, music. And I know a lot of people who did intern there and they really loved it. But like Mike said, and Nicole mentioned, how Teamwork Online really helped me. I didn't get a job through there, but I applied to many jobs on Teamwork Online. It's great. LinkedIn is your best friend. It's great. But yeah, no, keep plugging away, use your resources at Sacred Heart. That's what they're here for. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Kate, if you have anything to add, go ahead, and we'll start with you for the next question. So.
Yeah, I think the big key that a lot of other people said was networking. LinkedIn is so crucial. Like, I paid for LinkedIn Premium when I was going through my job search, so I could message people who I knew were the hiring managers for roles. Obviously, like, do a little bit of vetting, because I know that there's been issues of like stuff like that. Make sure you're not like emailing the president of the company. I think that a big thing too in my field with like social media heavy is the community is so small, like Nicole said. So a lot of us in the social media world, we communicate via Twitter, and you kind of have to be involved in the sports conversation of what's going on. So a lot of networking is done kind of in those unconventional means that you don't really think about as being like traditional networking, but at least in my area of the industry, that's definitely where a lot of that's how I build a lot of my relationships with my peers in the industry. So I think that that's something that I kind of wish I had known when I was doing my job search, that yes, LinkedIn's there, yes, Teamwork Online is there, but also kind of building those relationships with other people in the industry as a person, rather than just as another employee or as a, I guess, like a career individual. Really getting to know the people who might be the individual who hire you for a role. I think yeah, that's really key. Also, not just like messaging someone saying like, hey, can you get me a job? I think that that's like, it's common sense, but it's also something that like sometimes you need a reminder. Definitely build those authentic relationships that you don't just have like a one-off informational interview, really like foster and build those relationships over time.
Yeah, I really think that's a great piece of advice that you touched on. Is you don't only have to reach out to people on LinkedIn or, again, a somebody comes and does one of these, and you connect with them on LinkedIn or you email them. It doesn't have to be in reference to a job or internship that they have. A lot of times I think a lot of people will look at that as like, oh, this student maybe is just kind of using me for that job or internship. So, if you do want to get ahead and kind of, I think, diversify yourself a little bit from those students that are always asked about jobs and internships, again, like Katie said, mention, talk about or ask about, information interviews, or even just like, I mean, grabbing a cup of coffee has looked a lot different now than it did in the past, but, hopping on a Zoom for them for 5-10 minutes. Again, like Katie said, I think they'll almost take on more of a mentor role than anything in that regard. And again, you are going to need referrals at some point, and again, they probably know a lot of the key players in the game, so if they don't have anything, they can certainly help with that. It's kind of a shorter question here, but Katie, going back to you, what skills have you maybe developed along the way that have led to your success?
I think the biggest thing has been like a willingness to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and also being confident or comfortable enough with rejection because you're confident in your abilities. So I think if you know that you are skilled and capable of holding your own in meetings, or having a creative idea for a post, or like presenting analytics in my case, I think if you know that you can do it, I think it makes anything else uncomfortable that comes your way a lot easier. I think another skill is, it's like a deeper level of teamwork, but not seeing coworkers or peers in the community as competition, seeing them more as an individual that you can work collaboratively to make everyone look good. I know that I've definitely worked in organizations where there has been a level of like competition amongst peers. And I think a lot of organizations kind of thrive in that environment. Whereas I think in sports, and hopefully if you have a good culture of your organization, I think that you do a lot better as a team, and you make a lot better work if you don't see others as competition, and you see other people's wins, not as your loss, but as kind of like the team's win.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris, how about you? Any skills you've developed
Yeah.
on MLB and series that have helped?
Yeah. Actually, going off of what Katie said about competition, and I've had different, like you said, Mike. I went from MLB to Sirius, and two different roles. But now in my new role, I'm more of a, almost like basically a manager, where I'm in the middle. I'm on Zoom interviews for hiring processes. I'm giving my advice to the hiring manager, my manager, about people who come in. And something about the last question I wanted to add. We definitely need more Sacred Heart grads. I'm tired of seeing Syracuse grads on applications. So if anyone wants to apply to the sports department at Sirius, I would love to. I would love to see Sacred Heart on the resume. But yeah, no, I mean, now the skills that I need to like have one-on-ones with my board operators and stuff like that. So I think Sacred Heart really prepared me well for that, in a professional manner. And like I said, I went from being a production assistant / logger at MLB, where I was at a little cubicle all day, and now I'm like on Zoom calls, and with these times Zoom calls, but one-on-one interviews with people. So it's really just going from doing minor work to major work, and Sacred Heart really helped me for that, because they taught me every skill that I needed to have. So
awesome. Thank you, Chris. How about you?
I would say probably the biggest one, especially since all this COVID stuff started, is being flexible in what your day-to-day looks like. As I mentioned prior, for me, each day doesn't look the same, but if I kind of have a layout of like, all right, these 5 or 6 posts are going out, but then if, especially in the sports world, breaking news happens, and you have to, kind of adjust on the fly and be comfortable with that, where it's like, all right, I was working on this one thing, that's got to go on the back burner. Here's, what we're going to tackle next. And then I would also say, just as it's been mentioned before, teamwork, camaraderie, and then, yeah, definitely being there to, support those in your department. There's a little bit of healthy competition, but, in our group, when other people get different opportunities or different promotions, it's always at first, a big congratulations, kind of lift as you rise, because you never know where some of the people that you work with now may end up down the line. We've had a little bit of a turnover in our department, and colleagues that I was really close with. I now have contacts that work at the 76ers. Someone works at the Four Seasons. Someone else, works for a different media competitor. So just having those connections, and, people remember that, if you continue to reach out to them, the folks that have left going forward, you remember their birthday, send them a text. Hey, how are things? Let's chat at some point. So just continuing to network beyond when you initially work with folks as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, I would just say a willingness to learn. I mean, like I said, when I started, I knew nothing about golf. I didn't even understand the sport at that time, and just willingness to learn, asking questions. Just like never feel like you're bothering someone with a question. And I say that now that I've finally have a few people that are working under me. They are like, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm like, don't. I'd rather you ask and get the right answer and do it correctly the first time than continue to fail because you just didn't ask the question that I probably could have helped you with. So that's the thing. It's a big thing is communication, working with your team, making sure you're asking questions and just always learning. I love just talking to my colleagues about our industry and just learning more about it because it's only going to help me in what I do and having that extra knowledge about our industry and what we're doing. So just that willingness to continue to learn, but also just do anything, be there to help with everything, willingness to pick up and where someone left off if they need extra set of hands or, like I said, nothing is beneath you, just being there to help the team, especially with, working on tournaments and making tournaments happen. It's not one person that's going to make a tournament happen. It's all of us working together in different departments and different roles. And if we don't have that communication and we don't work together, we're going to fail. And that's not what you want. So it's that willingness to work with your colleagues, learn from your colleagues, and just keep moving forward. I liked the line that Katie said, being willing to being uncomfortable. And that's kind of, you never want to feel comfortable in your industry. You always want to keep growing and learning. If you're too comfortable, then you need to try something else. That's what I always say.
Yeah, I love that quote. All right, coming back to you, Nicole, to kind of wrap it up here. Final question, and then we'll open up for Q&A from the students. If you could do it all over again, or if you were able to come back to Sacred Heart and do it all over again, is there anything you would have changed? Anything you would have done differently? Anything you would have, I don't know, gotten involved in, tried to get more, learn more? I don't know. Kind of take it from there. A lot of freedom with that question.
I don't know. I think I've been fortunate to have a really awesome path, and I would say it fully came from Sacred Heart. I would say not only my personality, my confidence. I built a lot of that at my time at Sacred Heart. It's the professors and the students who were a team. I was on a team sport when I was at Sacred Heart, and just having those people supporting you and being behind you. Half my friends know nothing about, don't understand what I do because they're not in my industry, but always having their support and backing me up and kind of being there for me was something that I loved about Sacred Heart. And I'm jealous that you guys have a bigger school and even better professors and better programs. But for what I had at my time, I think it set me up very, very well. And I hope that you guys just even learn from that and keep using your alumni network as it grows year in, year out. And just keep using your friends and your contacts there. Like we were all saying, it's all about networking, staying in touch. I still reach out all the time to professors where I talk to them a lot on LinkedIn, and just keep in touch because you just never know who you're going to run into again down the road or who you may need down the road, even if you decide if your industries start to mesh together.
Thanks, Nicole. Emily, how about you? And just between Emily, Chris, and Katie, just nothing different, doing nothing different is a fine answer too. That's how you just want to answer it.
Yeah, definitely echoing Nicole. I remember when the media department used to be in a really tiny area near Milady. So take advantage of everything that the campus has to offer. Because I've talked to people that went to different schools across the country and they're like, my program never had that. So sometimes you don't realize how fortunate you are to be at Sacred Heart. So take advantage of every opportunity. Don't be afraid to get involved. I feel like maybe a little bit, I wish that I got involved in some things maybe a little earlier. I kind of throughout every year added on different clubs and activities, and it's never too late to try something. I mean, try it out for a semester. If it's a great fit, awesome. If not, don't be afraid to drop it. You don't want to overcommit yourself. But yeah, and then, echoing Nicole as well, maintain those contacts, maybe even outside of your major, just to talk to different things about people, different connections. Because like she said, you'll never know who you run into down the line.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. How about you, Chris?
I'll take another 5 years if I could, but no, I everything was great at Sacred Heart. I don't know if we have just upperclassmen in the Zoom call or freshmen, sophomores, but I would get involved as possible. I got involved from day one. Sacred Heart just, transformed me into the guy I am today. And I did activities that didn't, as Mike and Amy know, I was an orientation leader. I was in student government. I was in a fraternity. I played club volleyball. I did basically everything you could do at Sacred Heart. And so, it didn't have to be just the sports media field, but also I was involved in the sports media club. I did play-by-play in color broadcasting. So, just get involved as possible and you'll be fine. There's plenty to do at Sacred Heart. Professors are there, career development. And that's something not that I would do over, but I would, tell people to get involved in, come to the career development, not just because you guys are on this call, but you guys are great there and you guys really help. So I would recommend always going to them if you have any questions for jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chris. Katie, how about you wrap us up and then, like I said, open up to Q&A.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that it's okay to say no, because I often, since graduating, I do reflect sometimes wondering if I should have changed my major to sports management or media, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do until my senior or my junior year. I thought I wanted to work in travel or hospitality or something like that. And it was really just my junior year where I decided like sports is what I wanted to do. So then, and sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should have actually majored in one of something sports related. But I guess like now where I'm at, I don't think I would have changed anything. Because I think that, again, like the business school gave me a lot of unique skills that I think helped me stand out on my resume. A lot of the times when you think like social media, you think of photography, videography, Photoshop, stuff like that. And I have like basics of those skills, but I think kind of a rarity in my sector is having that analytics and kind of strategy mindset, which I think that my experience at Sacred Heart definitely helped shape that, being able to kind of look at how to better optimize situations. And that's kind of came about also with what I was involved in clubs and organizations, like being a pre-fall leader and stuff like that. So I definitely think that I would agree, like everything, as long as you get really involved in the community, I think everything you do at Sacred Heart contributes to who you are and like how you're going to be in the industry. So yeah, I personally, right now, I don't think I would have changed anything.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So students, you have 4 great resources here at your disposal. Feel free to put in any questions in the chat if you don't want to come off mute or you don't want to share your screen. If you're comfortable coming off mute, feel free to kind of just chime in with any questions. But the next 15 minutes or so is all yours. So any questions, definitely now's your time to ask. I know it's a Friday, but don't be shy.
All right, I'll break the ice. I'll go first. So I had a question for Nicole Cote because so I'm a golfer. Like I'm interested in anything that like is like around the golf world. Like that's kind of what I see myself doing because I just love it. And I'm a golfer at Sacred Heart right now. So my question is like I couldn't hear really well, but like how did you get started with the golf? Like with just the golf world, like so I heard you had like your first interview, like your first internship at the President Cup, right?
Yes, I did. So I actually when I interned at Sacred Heart in the athletic department, there was a gentleman at Sacred Heart who was on a board of PGA of America, and the PGA Championship was coming to Baltusrol, which is in New Jersey, where I'm originally from. And I was like, it's an internship, it's close to home, seems cool. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And after I finished that internship, I was like, I want to do this again. I looked at the PGA Tour calendar and I saw President's Cup was coming. I asked my contacts there if they knew of anyone, and they did, and they connected me, and that's kind of how I was able to land those jobs. So it's just like I was saying before, networking. Another thing I was going to mention prior, which kind of relates to your question, is just when you are in this world of sports, there's not just the NFL runs a football game or the PGA Tour runs a golf tournament. Everyone asks me all the time that if I work for the PGA Tour, and I don't. So there's so many organizations and management companies, and even like we have an ESPN here, we have Sirius Radio here, like all of these folks on this call are are in our industry and can touch our industry. Just because, you know, they don't work specifically in golf, it doesn't mean there isn't a department in their companies that does. So there's so many different ways to touch golf. If you as a golfer, if you work for a golf course or you work at a golf course, working in the pro shop, picking a shop that has a golf tournament, a professional tournament coming its way, meeting the folks when they come into town and take over your golf course like we've done here. So you never know kind of what touches the world. So I definitely recommend like Teamworks Online. There's so many small different companies that work in our industry that you just would never know their name because it's not a big name company. So just kind of looking around and asking questions and seeing like, okay, well, I see this happening, but how did that happen here? How, you know, who does X, Y, and Z at that tournament? Because we bring in millions of different companies and vendors to touch our area. So you just never know. You could work for a company and be fully in sports, but the company's main business has nothing to do with sports. So there's different sectors of smaller companies that could still let you touch the sports world.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that really helps me because I was looking at an internship that was, because you said that Golf Channel was like moved to Stanford, the headquarters were moved there. So I saw that they were looking for interns for the spring 2022. So I was just kind of looking through the job descriptions, and stuff that were in the job description was like, oh, like I never thought of doing that, but maybe that could help me, you know, like just build an interest in something else also, like. So I was kind of debating on what to do, and like maybe that's what I will do. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, either you're working behind the computer at headquarters in Stanford or if you're out here. There's so many different positions that I mean, just even Golf Channel has with NBC. So
okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you for that question, Margot. And I think a good thing that Nicole mentioned, and you even referenced it, Margot, too, like you're not going to be, right, like everyone loves sports, they want to work in sports, and that's what their dream is, but you're not going to be just like working in sports. You got to be doing something working in sports. So it's not just a matter of you're just having an interest in sports, or again, just being a sport management major being enough, but you have to kind of find, you know, what you like to do, what kind of functions essentially you like to do that you can kind of get your way into sports. Again, liking sports is great. A lot of people have that interest, but typically, again, like I said, not enough to kind of make your way in there. If that makes sense. Also, just apply. Art does obviously own a golf course, so that's another way to potentially get involved in working in golf. So, yeah, definitely wanted to mention that. Any other questions from the students on on the call?
Oh, I just have a question, or sorry, to be here, I can show my face on camera.
You're fine, Kristen. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, well, actually, I think I'm the only old student here. I'm actually a grad student at SHU right now. I was an undergrad at SHU, and I recently graduated in May 2021. I guess I was just wondering, I did come a little late into this call, but I was just wondering, I'm studying film and television right now. I did undergrad, I'm in a master's program. But honestly, I'm trying to look at an internship or job right now, and the sports ones do seem pretty interesting. But I think I heard from some panel here, is it okay to go maybe into a sports like internship or job, even if you don't have a good knowledge of sports? I know sometimes the sports jobs, they do have something that I might be able to do, even if I am film and television, like doing camera work or audio or any of that thing. So I was just wondering, like, do I have to have a big range of like knowledge of sports, or could I maybe go into it just learning it like along the way?
I can take this one. I think it depends on the role. Like in your position where you're looking for more of the film and television. So at ESPN, for example, if you wanted to apply to be a camera operator, they're going to look for someone with those technical skills who can, work in the studios, and that's the primary focus. But then say you're working on an NFL program or you're working on Sports Center, you'll probably just kind of absorb a lot of the, technical sports knowledge from spending your time in the studio. So I would say definitely, when applying for a position, maybe be upfront and just say, hey, I'm, familiar with sports, but it's not like, I can rattle off stats off the top of my head. Maybe make that a little upfront, because again, it's the sports knowledge. You can always learn it. That sometimes isn't always necessarily necessarily a requirement for, specific functions. Obviously, it depends on the role, but yeah, be open to learning about everything, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a good you mentioned that, Emily. We actually had ESPN with us a couple weeks ago to kind of promote their ESPN Next program, which is a rotational program. And in that program, you're going to be like cutting highlights, working on sports center, things like that. And they did say, having again, they were transparent about it too, having some general knowledge of what's going on in sports is obviously important because you do have to understand how a hockey game works or a baseball game works typically to be able to cut highlights and stuff. So, but also like they were transparent enough to say like, if you are very interested in, let's say, a non-niche or like knowing your non-popular tennis, like that could really help. So yeah, again, great question, Kristen. Again, I think like Emily mentioned, it really depends on kind of the role you're looking in and if they're really looking for certain hard skills and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Any other questions from anybody else that's in here?
Hey, can I just jump in first of all and say hello to everybody that I know from when they were a student. So nice to see you guys. And I just wanted to follow up and get your opinion from the people in the field on that last question. Because what I hear a lot, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of jobs where it's about sports knowledge, but even more, particularly at the, if you're looking at a broadcasting company, they really are interested that you understand and know about the shows that they do. Like they want you to walk in, like I know Chris, I mean, I remember talking to people at MLB Network that they were like, yeah, they expected people that came in to know like, all right, what are the shows that were produced that you might be working on? And I hear the same thing. We just had somebody in from ESPN radio, and it's not, I mean, obviously sports knowledge is important, but also like, almost like any job interview, that doing your research to know about what it is you're going to be working on is really paramount.
Yeah, I mean, I could take this firsthand. I know people that I just trained had to have some sort of knowledge of what sports channels that we work on. Now we work on ESPN radio, Mad Dog Sports Radio, NFL radio, NBA radio, and one of our questions in our interview, because I do sit on the interview process, is can you name like channels that we board operate, like you'll be board operated for, and some people are just like clueless and that don't do their research, and that's a big thing. It's a great question, Professor Miller. That you got to do your research going to a job interview. That's key thing, because if you don't, that's just a big red flag for especially people that are interviewing for that job. So it's a great question. I think people that are trying to get into the sports field, film field, television field, do your research about the company. Going off of the question that the student asked, you like if you have a radio background but you're not familiar, just do your research, and then you'll learn so much. Then the internet will be your best friend. So
Yep, thanks, Chris. It's a great point to add. So anything else from anybody, any of the students here? Any other questions?
One more shameless plug, since Chris mentioned it, he wants more Sacred Heart applicants. Feel free, particularly in the sports area, if you reach back to me, we have some, I don't know if Chris checks it out, somewhat active like LinkedIn pages. I mean, what I would say is where the good thing about them is it's quality over quantity. Like I don't post a ton of things, but almost every other post I do is a job ad or something about a job where it's a Sacred Heart person has reached back to me. And so what I mean by quality is they're looking for it. Precisely, Chris said, they're looking for a Sacred Heart person, or that they would probably give that person a leg up. So feel free to reach back to me or to others that but we will then, and then as sometimes you're looking for your next job. So sometimes that can be a place to sort of, stay in contact with. And, we've had pretty good luck. Yeah, again, it's not a ton of postings, but when we do, yeah, it's usually, other Sacred Heart people then reaching out and getting, and then getting interviews at least.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And I think too, one thing that I think Katie mentioned when she was talking about her kind of journey was just because your first job isn't in sports doesn't mean you can't kind of work your way there. We have a lot of finance students that want to work at Goldman Sachs. This is kind of always my comparison. And unfortunately, like as great of a company as Goldman Sachs are, they're not typically looking at 22-year-old students to kind of bring in as their first job. But we have alumni there that make their way to Goldman Sachs. It's just they may need to start somewhere else to kind of get there. And by building that experience, by again putting some years under your belt, sometimes that is the thing that kind of gets you into that industry, into that job. So don't get discouraged too if your first job isn't in sports. It doesn't mean that it has to be everywhere. That you don't have to stay at that company for years and years and years. Definitely use that leverage to kind of move your way up to a company that you're really excited about. We've got a couple of minutes left. Any other questions from anyone in the room? No. All right, well, again, if any of the students think of anything when we leave the call, again, I have all the panelist information too, so you can feel free to send over any questions to, as Professor Miller mentioned himself, not me or Amy. And we can definitely make sure that those get forwarded along to the panelists too. Again, if you think of anything, call. But again, Katie, Chris, Emily, Nicole, thank you so much for all of your great information today. I know you guys all have so much you could be doing right now, so we really appreciate the time you gave us on this Friday. And again, we'll definitely be in touch. So thank you guys all again.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.